Hey, my friend, welcome to the Art of Online Business podcast. My name is Rick Mulready, and I'm an online business coach. I'm an ads expert, and most importantly, I'm a dad. And this show is where we help established online course creators and coaches create more profit, more impact with less hustle. All right, let's get into it. Hey, what's up, my friends? Welcome to episode number 634 here on the show. So excited about today's episode and next week's episode as well. Spoiler alert, today's part one, next week's part two. I've got my best friend, Pat Flynn, here on the podcast, and we're talking about one of my favorite topics and one of his favorite topics as well, and that's YouTube. So many of you are looking to diversify your traffic in your business, and rightfully so. And so if you're looking for an additional marketing channel that can not only help you in the short term, but also to build a long-term asset for yourself and your business, then I really want to encourage you to really strongly think about creating a YouTube channel if you haven't already. And so what Pat has been able to do on YouTube, he's got 2 channels right now, and I think he's got between the two like 600,000 subscribers. So he knows a lot about YouTube, right? He's always helping me, even though when he gives me a hard time, you're going to hear that in this first part about getting my channel going. And so my goal for you between part 1 today and part 2 next week is to walk away with just a ton of knowledge to be able to go take into creating your own videos on YouTube, how to set yourself up for faster growth on YouTube and just get, quicker results. Obviously, there's no results that are guaranteed, but we break it all down for you. Today, we dive into things like the things that you need to be starting with when it comes to, before you even create your video, what you need to start with and how that can set you up for more success. We also talk about like the algorithm, the types of things that you really want to understand about the algorithm so that can help you get more exposure and get more views on your video. We also talk about the massive opportunity that exists with YouTube and why those opportunities exist. And then in part 2 next week, we're going to talk about editing and how to get to your first 1,000 subscribers and talk about Pat's other channel, Deep Pocket Monster, which has grown to 250,000 subscribers in just over a year and a half. We talk about YouTube Shorts, analytics. We dive into and monetization, all that next week. Now, before we go hang out with Pat, if you want to dive deeper into really going step by step in creating the first 1,000 subscribers for your YouTube channel, I want to invite you to check out his online course. It's called YouTube from Scratch. Yes, I am a proud affiliate, not only because my relationship with Pat, but also I've gone through the course and it's the 4th course that I have bought on YouTube. And it is by far, number 1, the least expensive, and number 2, the best one, because it is just step by step, simplified. And Pat builds a YouTube channel right there and shows you how he does it right in the course. So it's called YouTube from Scratch. I put together a bonus for you when you enroll in YouTube from Scratch through my link. So I am a proud affiliate. I will get a small commission if you enroll in that. Go to rickmulready.com/Pat. And you can check out YouTube from Scratch right there. And without further ado, let's go hang out with him. Let's go hang out with Pat Flynn and talk some YouTube. So we're just joking right before we hit record. Are you nervous?
Super nervous. I've never done a podcast before. So
how many episodes have you done?
Well, on SPI over 600, on Ask Pat over 1,200, and I've probably been on over 500 episodes of other people's shows. So just a couple.
So this shouldn't be a problem for you.
Well, a lot of it depends on the host, I will say. So,
well, then you should be nervous then.
No, I'm not nervous at all.
Because I've now done, I think this is episode between the 2 podcasts I've ever, after over 9 years, I think it's like episode like 700.
Yeah, you've caught up and surpassed
pretty
me
close
on SPI at least. Well done.
So, well, thank you. That was my goal.
Yeah.
I just wanted to surpass SPI.
I love it. There's a little applause.
Thank you. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great.
Welcome back to the podcast.
I'm doing awesome. I've got as per usual, my feet in many different waters right now, both figuratively and actually, like fishing waters.
Yeah.
But more so in the business space. We're diving really heavy into community right now over at SPI. We just launched a beginners community. We had SPI Pro for a couple years now. We tested it. We've hired for it. We know how it works. And now we have the learner community, which is for our beginners, because the other one was for more established business owners. So that's going really well. We hired for that, and that's kind of running on its own right now, which is amazing. But I'm really excited about video, actually. I love podcasting. Podcasting will forever be in my heart as like what got me started, and I'm going to continue to do it. But there's just something about video with where we're at right now in the world and what people are consuming that is just really exciting for anybody, really.
I was just doing an interview. I was being interviewed on a podcast earlier this morning, and they asked me sort of the stereotypical kind of, what's one regret that you have over the years in growing your business? I said, you know what? I wish I started on YouTube years ago.
Yeah.
And I did. Technically.
There's one video of you that has like 40,000 views or something that I keep seeing in my feed. It's like why you shouldn't boost your Facebook posts or something. And it did really well. I'm like, where's the rest of it?
Yeah. Well, I have one newer video that I agonized over, and you know the story. We talked about it. But I literally did like 40 takes of the intro, if you will, of the and
well, there's your first problem.
I think yeah, I checked it the other day just for the heck of it, and I think there was like 107 views on it or something like that.
So you know what? You got that video published, and now you got to move on to the next one, because you get better with every single video, and you're not giving yourself a chance to do that. I'm going to keep pushing you on that, because I think that you have
I know
the ability to do really. Anybody has the ability to, if you're consistent, at least do well on YouTube.
I've asked you to stay on me about that, because I've gone through kind of couple different waves the past several months where I'm like super excited about it. Then I get caught up in so many other things. And now that desire to like jump back in, and I literally want to do it just to create a long-term asset basically, but also really have fun.
It is super
like
fun. Yeah.
So
is it a time thing?
I want to dive into
Is it a time thing for you? Like you don't have the time to do it, or?
No, I think it's it's just prioritization.
Yeah. Sorry, I feel like I'm taking over your podcast. Go ahead.
No, I like it. Well, that's something that, because my audience generally, like, they already have businesses. They already have online businesses. Right. They're likely not going to be full-time YouTubers. Mm-hmm. So how do they, where would you recommend starting? Or I guess, why do you think there's such an opportunity on YouTube?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Why don't we start there?
Let's talk about the why. For anybody who has a blog or a podcast, and especially if you have existing businesses where you're using those platforms to try to get traffic to, right? I mean, right now, YouTube is probably the #1 place to go to get free organic traffic. Yes, search engine optimization can work on your website, on a podcast, less so SEO, but more word of mouth. Like those things still work. But YouTube has an algorithm that allows for videos to be watched by people that don't even know you exist yet. Right? When you create a great video, it's not even about your subscribers. I think this is a big misconception. I want to get this out of the way. It's not about getting a whole bunch of subscribers. Getting a whole bunch of subscribers is a byproduct of a whole load of people watching your videos and then really excited about getting your next videos, right? That's where subscribers come from. But for anybody who has a successful YouTube channel, if you dive into their analytics, you're going to see that most of their views come from people that aren't subscribers. Anywhere between 80 to sometimes 90% of views, especially if you have a video sort of pop and go viral. And this is because of the algorithm that YouTube has that they're trying to hone in on. And they will send your video out for free to people that, based on the content of your video, based on the title and all that kind of stuff, they'll send it out for free to people they think are going to watch it. And whether they watch it or click on that video or not is really up to you, but they will do that for free. So there's a huge opportunity already. If you have a podcast and you don't have any contacts whatsoever, it is very difficult to have an engine sort of like try to help you. Now, that's not impossible. There could be the right person who discovers it and talks about it, and then boom, it could still explode. But on YouTube, you don't need any subscribers. Your next video could be the one that like puts you on the map, which is really exciting. It's almost like fishing to me. And I know you and I have done a lot of that lately, where the next cast could be the big one, right?
Yeah.
And you're not going to catch any fish if your line is not in the water. So it's like, okay, let's keep going. So you've cast it out once since you've started out YouTube again. You brought it in, you're like, I didn't really get anything. I got some weeds maybe. And then you're just like, well, I'm not going to cast out again. That's not going to work, right? You got
You're totally right. Yeah.
But there's some nuances here, which I'm sure we're going to get into. But the opportunity to get found is huge right now. And not only that, it comes with video, which means your personality is going to show. You get to be a little creative. Yes, it's a little bit more work than, say, writing a blog post or creating a podcast episode, but that's where you could stand out because not everybody's going to be doing this. But if you can get it right, you will not only show up in front of new people, you will become an authority and build a relationship with that audience much quicker. And your videos can relate to other videos that you've already published. This is another thing that podcasting lacks right now, which is when people listen to this show, it's up to them, up to the listener to determine what their next episode should be. And hopefully we can give them a call to action to go, hey, listen to this one or the next part 2 or whatever. But with YouTube, YouTube has, again, the algorithm that says, hey, after you watch this video, watch this one because we know you'll like it. And that all is happening under the hood. And this is the opportunity that's in front of us right now. I mean, it's always been there, but yeah.
When I post a video, what's happening in the background? So let's just say I post a video today. What's happening in the background is in terms of like the YouTube algorithm?
So YouTube, based on the description, the title, etc., and any viewing history of your previous videos, etc., is going to go, cool, Rick just published a video. Let me send it to people. Well, first of all, the subscribers, and let's see how they react to it. Right. So we'll send a notification to anybody who's hit the bell notification icon. Not all subscribers will also see your videos, just like any other platform. Now it's algorithmic based on, well, how active are they following your stuff? But anyway, they'll send it out to people that already know you exist, and they'll send it out to people who fit a similar profile. And then they're going to go, okay, let's see what happens. Are people going to click on this video? And if people who click on this video actually watch it, cool. That's a signal to us that, great, we want to send this to more people. Because ultimately, what does YouTube want? YouTube wants people to watch videos and stay on the platform, because what does that do for them? It gives them more dollars in their bank account because more ads can be shown. And so if you can help YouTube do that, they're going to help you back. If they send your video out and nobody's clicking, and you get you get those analytics pretty quickly, actually, once your video's out. If nobody's clicking, well, it's kind of done for, and they're not going to send it out to anybody else. Why would they? They're going to send videos out that actually people click on and watch. Now, if people are clicking, but then you're still not getting a lot of impressions, it likely means, well, people are clicking and they're not getting a lot of value out of it. They're leaving early, which is another signal to YouTube. Oh, okay, well, let's not share this either. But if you can get it right, I mean, they will help you for days. And it's interesting because sometimes they'll do an initial wave of like, okay, let's send these impressions out. Let's see what happens. And then you get sort of like a medium bump, and then it kind of goes away. But then without doing anything else, 10, 12, 2 weeks later, 10, 12 days, 2 weeks later, it'll have another bump because they'll be like, oh, well, let's try this group of people and see what happens. And that's what happens. Like, I've had videos that have been sort of sitting there for 6 months, and then boom, out of nowhere, without doing anything, it receives a huge wave of views. It might also be because somebody else on YouTube created a video that relates to your video, and then people are watching that one and coming over to yours. That's like a recommendation or a suggested view. That's not to say if you do a video and it has very little clicks, you're done for. You can always change the title and thumbnail. And in fact, when I teach this stuff and when I practice, it's, well, okay, I published a video and YouTube will tell you how it's doing compared to your previous 10. It'll say, this is the best video, 1 out of 10 that you've published in a while. Like, keep going, great job. Or it might say like 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 as far as performance. Okay, if I'm getting an 8, 9, or 10 within the first hour, I'm like, okay, the problem is obviously the title or thumbnail, because that's the only thing people see before they click, right? It's a 2-part strategy, the click and the stick. But if you're not getting any impressions up front, it's likely a click problem, and you can change your thumbnail or title, and that's totally okay to do. You can even do that with older videos from years ago and still see a result.
I want to circle back to adding this to your existing business, but I want to also ask a question on what you just said. So we have a video, we send it out, it's doing okay, but no one's watching. So I guess my point is, we change the title and thumbnail down the road, if you will.
You can do that.
A week later, does that sort of reset the algorithm, if you will? Does YouTube see that and says, oh, okay, there was a change. We'll try this again. if you
For the
will.
most part, yeah, they'll
Yeah.
do that for you. And so what's nice is you have multiple chances, right? I am in a Discord group with a lot of big YouTubers and the person who controls the algorithm at YouTube. So I have direct insight into a lot of this stuff. And yeah, if you change the title and the thumbnail, I mean, YouTube will give you another chance. They're not going to send it to millions of people. They'll send it to
Right.
maybe a few hundred or 1,000 and again, see what happens. But again, if there's a significant change in the analytics, the click-through rate, et cetera, then they'll go, oh, okay, let's send it to 5 more thousand and see what happens. Oh, okay, it's still doing well here. Okay, boom, let's send a wave now because this video is actually good. We just didn't know because nobody was actually clicking on it before.
Yeah. Is that what the algorithm sounds like?
That's
okay.
that's the algorithm.
That's a cool voice.
Yeah. That's actually the guy's name in Discord. It's the algorithm.
So we're thinking about, I mean, I actually never, I mean, as much as you and I have talked about it, I don't think it sunk into me until right now in this conversation that, and obviously been podcasting for years. We were talking about that earlier, but like, there's no other platform to, because I think when people, and I know that I thought about this way before you and I started talking about it months ago, was that people are like, oh, I got to create this, or I don't want to start YouTube because it's going to take so long to get traction. And I love the fishing metaphor, obviously, that if I'm not putting anything out there, I have no chance of catching anything. If I'm not putting videos out there, I have no chance of having the algorithm potentially pick it up. And so now that we know that, now that I'm even more excited now, by the way,
Good.
Where do we start? If we have an existing business, we're doing really well. Most often people think like, oh, I don't have time to add one more thing.
Yeah, of course.
We've established though, the opportunity that exists. How do we begin to look at, what topics should I be talking about? Where do I even start with this?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing to realize is that you don't need to be extravagant in order to see results, especially if you have a business and stuff. I mean, we get so jaded by a lot of the top YouTubers and what they're doing, like Mr. Beast, for example, who just crossed 100 million subscribers, and he's spending $3 million per video and doing these crazy, ridiculous stunts. And it's like, oh, I don't have the money or resources to do that, or okay, maybe I will do something ridiculous and hopefully, get some eyeballs. You don't need to do that. If you have a business, just realize that you're probably not going to have a channel with 100 million subscribers, right? And that's okay, because it's not about that. It's about you being a resource for people who, A, already know you, and B, a way for people to find you who don't know you already. And so where I would start would be to approach YouTube as a library or a future library that you're going to create answers to questions for. Very simply. So if you have 5, 10 common questions that people always ask you about what it is that you do and how you do what you do, or obstacles that they have to overcome, or challenges that you can help them through, quick wins that you can offer that essentially generate leads for you and answer questions that are probably coming in different places. For example, there are questions I always get about like, hey, Pat, how do I create presentations like you do, right? Because I do a lot of heavy lifting on, now it's Canva, but I used to be Keynote and whatnot. And I just point people to a video now to answer that question. And it's massively valuable because it's packaged and it's there. And not only is it helping those people who ask those questions via email, Jess, my assistant, is the one who sends people to the multiple answers that I already have on YouTube. By the way, people also search on YouTube for answers to questions, sometimes more than Google. I know I do. If I'm looking to, figure out how to fix a leaky washer, I'm looking on YouTube because I can see that question already answered visually, and I can go to a video that has a lot of views and read the comments and get proof so that I know I'm not wasting my time. So you can become that resource. And
I just searched, dude. Sorry to cut you off.
Right.
Literally before we started recording, I searched. I don't care about sharing this right now to lots of people.
I'm really scared about what you're about to say.
You have no idea what I'm going to say. It's been a while. I'm embarrassed to say it, but it's been a while since I've been to the dentist because of the pandemic. I drink a lot of coffee.
I'm looking at your teeth right now, by the way.
My teeth, I'm like, now I'm covering up my mouth. My teeth can be whiter. We'll just call it that. I literally went to YouTube and said, how do I whiten how do I whiten coffee steam tea
Yeah.
or something like that. Anyway, I came up with great resources.
Right.
Anyway,
So case in point,
carry on,
right?
my friend.
Case in point, people are looking for answers. So there's a guy I just interviewed on my podcast. His name is Matt, and he Giovanisi, and he has a pool company. And on YouTube, he is like known as the pool guy, but he answers questions. And actually, it was kind of interesting how I rediscovered him, because he was actually somebody who was back in my speaking days who would speak on stage at FinCon, and I met him. I knew him. I didn't even know he had this pool thing going on. I just knew him as like the FinCon rapper because he created these videos that were really funny. Anyway, I during the pandemic, we get a pool, like a backyard pool, like a above ground pool, and it's like rubber, and we fill it with water, we swim in it, and then all of a sudden, like a couple days later, this film starts like overlaying on top of the water. I'm like, oh gosh, like what's going on here? Because we didn't have filters or nothing. We were just like, oh, let's fill it up, and we're swimming every day, but now it feels slimy. So I look on YouTube and I say, like, how do I fix my, or how do I clean my above ground pool? And then boom, his video comes up, and I'm like 4 videos deep. I'm buying all this stuff now. I'm using his affiliate link and whatnot. And I didn't sign up for it, but he also has a course called like Swim University or something like that. And I mean, that's his business. That's his livelihood now. And the way that he gets leads for that is because he's answering questions that people have. They then get answers, and then YouTube does the job of going, hey, you probably might enjoy this video. You might enjoy this video, or this video might be relevant. Now you've watched 10 of Matt's videos and you have a pool being delivered tomorrow. It's like, that's kind of how it works. And so you don't have to create these super highly produced videos. Just get in front of the camera and answer questions. Over time, you can start getting better with your video and your editing and your storytelling and the text on the screen and your B-roll and all this kind of stuff. But just start simple. And as Roberto Blake says, he's another big YouTuber who helps YouTubers. You want to sort of approach your first 100 videos to just your first 100 subscribers. Like, just know that it's not going to grow your channel a ton right away. But in addition to the fishing analogy, another analogy I like to use on YouTube is gardening. You're planting seeds. Not every seed you plant is going to sprout. Some of those things will sprout a little bit and then die off. Other things are just going to flourish. And sometimes you don't know, because you don't know what the climate and how things will respond in this particular environment that you're in. But if you don't plant any seeds, nothing's going to happen. But you also have to be careful, because when gardening, if you plant the seeds too close together, because you're just like, oh, I'm going to dump every seed I have in this one planter, well, things aren't going to grow either. And that's how a lot of people who are like, I'm going to go crazy on YouTube, I'm going to publish 5 videos a day, and then they do, and they burn out. I wouldn't publish even 1 video a day. I would publish 1 to 2 videos a week, because you can actually self-sabotage the growth of your videos that you've just published by publishing a new one, because YouTube hasn't had a chance to figure out if there's an audience on YouTube yet for that particular video. Anyway, there's a lot of this stuff. I teach it in my course, and we could go really deep on it, but I hope this at least gives people who are listening an insight as far as, well, kind of how it works, and the opportunity, and you know, the approach that you could take if you're just starting out. Just answer questions, and now you have that. Even if nobody watches those videos or finds them on YouTube, when a person asks those questions in your business, you have a video that you can point people to, and that is of value to you.
Yeah. Now, one question I had early on that you and I talked about specifically along this topic here was, because when I think of creating a video for YouTube, I used to think, I was like, ooh, I have to create something that is, you know, quote unquote, YouTube SEO friendly. It has to be something that's, you know, people are searching for, versus creating something for my exact audience.
Yeah.
Kind of like what you just said. Is there a balance, or is it just like, let's just get started in answering questions and you start to build momentum from there?
I mean, there's the way I teach it is there's 2 ways to approach videos. They will overlap in the end, but your approach is what matters. You can take a search-based approach, which means you want to know what keywords people are typing in, right? And then you can create a video based on that. For example, I have a video called How to Create an Awesome Slide Deck. Awesome is not a keyword that people are searching for. It's just the keyword within that title that gets people excited when they see that title and thumbnail. But it's how to create a slide deck. And that's my most popular video. It's 1.8 million views. And it took about 60 days until like it really took off, which was really interesting. But then there's the suggested / browse based approach. Those are two different but similar traffic sources on YouTube, right? So there's search traffic, which actually accounts for almost the least amount of traffic as far as the main traffic sources. It's not going to be as much as what is potentially there for you in suggested and browse based, right? Browse based traffic is when you go to the homepage of YouTube and you're kind of just browsing the videos that are there. That's like YouTube going, hey, Rick, like, we think you might like this video. I know you don't know this person, but based on what they published and how other people are reacting to it, you might like this one. That's sort of browse based. And then suggested is like after you watch a video, what do you watch next, or what's in the sort of right-hand column or underneath if you're watching on mobile. Those two traffic sources, you don't need to worry about keywords per se. It's, can you capture the attention of people when they are scrolling with their thumb, and does that title and thumbnail excite them enough? And so an approach that I took with a video, this is in the business space, was best, what did I do? Oh, the one question Tim Ferriss asked me that changed my life. Now, when you come across that, nobody's searching for that. Like the one question Tim Ferriss asked, or like which one question did Tim Ferriss ask Pat Flynn? Nobody knows they need to know that. But when they see that title and there's a thumbnail of Tim and I and our faces pretty up close, I wanted Tim's face to be big because he's recognizable in the space. So as far as the thumbnail, that's why I purposefully did that on the left-hand side, because he's the subject of this video. I'm there on the right-hand side, and I have my hand across my face as if I'm reacting to what he's saying. And then text in the middle says, I should have known, or something like that. So now it's a curiosity-based click. Not because people are searching for that thing, but because they come across it, and now they need to know the answers. They want to know what's going on, right? And essentially, that video is all about the one question that Tim asked me that changed my life, which is, if this were easy, what would it look like? Which is a question that I think all of you listening or viewing this should consider when it comes to the approach to YouTube, or really anything. If this were easy, what would it look like? And that question, I just talk about how when I heard that question, I was able to sort of weed whack a whole bunch of things in my life that were making things more difficult than they needed to be. And so I could have created that video and said, the title could have been, what was the question again? I totally am spaced. If this were easy, what would it look like? The question that changed my life. Well, okay, you've already told me the answer, so why do I need to click? And I don't think this is important to me. So using Tim as the video's sort of like carrot, now I'm able to provide value. Here's the big thing that I'm sure a lot of people are thinking or will think, and that is, well, clickbait, right? Clickbait is a big topic and subject matter of a lot of arguments and conversation about YouTube. But here's the truth. If you're not getting people to click, your video might as well not even exist, right?
Yeah.
And that'll be a waste of time. The way to approach it would be the way I love this guy. He has a channel called Veritasium, and he is a scientist, and he brings a lot of truth to things. He did a whole video about clickbait. He calls it legit bait. It's legit. You are baiting people to click, but only so that you can provide the value and deliver on the promise of what you're offering. That's what you need to do. It's when you put a thing on the thumbnail and you know, you're going to win $1 million if you click on this as the title, and then you don't deliver on that. That is clickbait. And you're not going to be rewarded for that by YouTube anyway, because people are going to see that, thumbs it down, and they're not going to watch all the way through. And that's going to send the signals to YouTube to not send this out to anybody else. So capturing that attention up front, but then following through and delivering on that whilst during the video, holding people, keeping them engaged, keeping them all the way to the end as much as possible. That's when the magic really starts to happen.
Hey, it's Rick here. So I just want to jump in real quick. I want to try something here in the podcast. I want to start to kind of jump into the middle of interviews like this and recap some of the big points that have already been made in the first half of the episode, and also share with you what is coming up on the second half of the episode here. So Pat talked a lot about the opportunity that exists with YouTube. If you have an existing online business right now, YouTube is the #1 place to go get organic traffic. And the reason for that, aside the fact that it's the #2 search engine, right? YouTube has an algorithm that allows videos to be watched by people who don't even know you exist. And it's less about the number of subscribers, and most views come from people who are not subscribers. So when we remember that, it kind of takes the pressure off of, oh, I got to get to this many, 100,000 subscribers or 1,000 subscribers. Don't get me wrong, the subscribers are super important because when we have those subscribers, our new videos are going to go to those people first. And then as they watch, the more they watch, it's going to get, the algorithm is going to pick that up and start showing it to more people. So it's really, really important to understand how the algorithm works, which, by the way, Pat breaks down all of these things in depth, as we talked about here in the podcast so far, in his YouTube from scratch course. And I bought his course. This is the fourth YouTube course that I've purchased because I'm super interested in this topic. And it is by far the best one. And I'm not saying that just because Pat, I'm so close with Pat. It literally is the least investment and the best, simplest way to learn YouTube and get your first 1,000 subscribers. And so I put together a couple bonuses for you if you want to go check it out. rickmulready.com/Pat will take you over to the page. You can enroll there. And like I said, I've got some bonuses there for you as well. Pat also talked about the title and thumbnail being the most important aspects of your video, because if we're not getting people to click, clickbait or not, if we're not getting people to click on our video, then what's the point of creating a video, right? We have to get people to click. And the cool thing is that Pat said, you can always change the title and thumbnail if a video isn't performing well, even if it's an older video. And sometimes when you make that change, YouTube's going to see that as a new video and start pushing it out again, which is really cool. And, you don't have to, when you're starting out on YouTube and adding YouTube to your existing business as an organic traffic channel, you don't need to be extravagant to see results. Pat talked about, for example, answering frequently asked questions that you get as individual videos and building up sort of a library, if you will. So when people ask you those questions, you can refer them over to your YouTube channel to that specific video where you answer that question. And then they're very likely going to stay and watch more videos, which is what YouTube's algorithm wants. And remember, this is about consistency, right? The algorithm rewards consistency. So for me, for example, in my strategy for my YouTube channel, it's not about number of subscribers for me personally. It's about creating consistency, putting out 1 to 2 videos per week for for a year, literally. Because as Pat talked about, approaching your first 100 videos, knowing that it's not going to grow your channel right away. This is about planting seeds, right? Because if you're not doing that, then nothing's going to happen on your video. Okay. And so that was sort of the highlights of the first half. Coming up in the second half here, Pat talks about how long your video should be. Pat's going to give you a whole bunch of content ideas for your videos. And he also talks about hooks and how to keep people watching your videos, which is one of the most important metrics that YouTube looks at. So that is coming up here in part 2. Let's go back and hang out with Pat.
So there's there's a formula for that. I know that sort of like the arc, if you will, of a video when you do that. I'd love to chat about that here in just a second. If someone's answering a question, if this is the easiest thing for us to do to kind of get started, get some momentum, the $1 million question that everybody asks that you get 1 million times, how long should a video be?
The video, the podcast, the blog, the newsletter, the email, anything should be as long as it needs to be to deliver on the value that you're promising, right? I have a couple videos that are 2 minutes in length that have gone gangbusters that I'm just really proud of. And no, they're not long enough to get, mid-roll ads in my videos to make a revenue that way, but they're still valuable and they bring people in, they bring subscribers in and brand awareness. I have other videos like my most recent podcast tutorial. I did a podcast tutorial initially in 2012 and then again in 2018. And it's just a video type that I create every few years to update people on how to create a podcast. YouTube has almost kind of known that I am the podcast guy on YouTube to teach it. So much so that when I create any podcasting video now, those videos do really well because they're like, oh, Pat created another podcast video. Let's resend this to everybody who watched that old one. Anybody who's interested in podcasting, let's send this to. And anybody who's watched my podcast tutorials are going to get it. And that's kind of how it works over time. You can't even have that happen until you create a library of videos, right? And an audience type or profile. Anyway, that video, the latest one, is 30 minutes in length, like really long. And it, within 7 months, has 250,000 views now and is providing thousands of dollars per month in revenue based on a hosting company that I provided it, right, as an affiliate.
Yeah.
So, and I got paid to create that video as well. It's pretty insane what is again possible. So as long as it needs to be, that video needed to be 30 minutes in length because I talk about literally everything you need to know about podcasting to get started. The other videos are just quick hit sort of commentary on certain things that were timely.
Yeah.
Gary Vaynerchuk, for example, created a video a while back saying like passive income was fake or something like that. And I'm the passive income guy at SPI, so I wanted to comment on this. And so title thumbnail worked really well, and I got, 100,000 or so views within a week or two. And then that video wasn't really relevant anymore after that, but it's still there in the library in case people want to see it. But that's an example of a shorter video that was relevant and on topic with my audience and my brand. And so the length didn't even matter. But if you were, going to, punch me in the face and say, Pat, if you don't tell me like what's an ideal length for a video, like I'm going to punch you.
I'm totally going to do
I'll
that.
duck and then punch you back. But I would say, 8 to 12 minutes is kind of the sweet spot, because when you hit 8 minutes after you enable monetization, you can now include mid-roll ads in your videos. And I didn't include any ads in my videos up front because I was like, no, I need it to be about the content and whatnot. I don't know if this is true. There are rumors like, well, if you enable ads, then YouTube will share it with more people, because that kind of makes sense, right? Because they're making more money. I don't know if that's true. I have zero understanding of whether or not that's true or not, but it's just a theory. But even then, like, I've included ads, including mid-roll ads in my videos, and not one person has complained. I don't sprinkle them every minute, but I think people are used to those things by now. And with my two channels combined, I've made upwards of $30,000 to $35,000 a month at one point when it was hot.
Yeah.
It's gone down a little bit, but I mean, that's a significant load of money coming in just from people watching the videos, and it's helping me build brand awareness, and it's getting leads into my courses, and I'm getting brand deals, and it's fun.
Yeah. I want to get in, like, there's so many things I want to get into. Let's kind of wrap up so we have content ideas, answering questions. And because again, that is what I find the question I hear most from like my students is like, okay, I'm not really sure what to talk about. So we have ideas now for answering questions. What are some other ideas for where to grab topics?
Yeah. Great question. So we've got the questions to answer, right, from our audience. That's great because we're removing the guesswork, and no matter what happens with those videos, those will still be useful. Secondly, you might have another platform, a blog or a podcast, for example, where you've had some topics that have been more popular than others. Let's now bring those into video format and now add visuals on top of them. They've been proven to work really well with your audience. Let's do that. Third, you might find that there might be something more timely, more pop culture happening right now kind of thing that could potentially relate to what you're doing. Those work really, really well. For example, when Stranger Things was coming out, there were a lot of videos related to that and the theories and all that stuff. Yes, entertainment, but there were a lot of, infotainment places that were creating videos, but kind of piggybacking or newsjacking off of all the chatter about Stranger Things, right? Like I could do a video about the guy who plays Eddie Munson,
Love that guy.
Yeah, he's great. Joseph, I think, and how his career is now changing as a result of his spot here. But like, if you look at his history, like he was just sort of an extra for a very long time, or he had these side roles, nothing really major. So how did somebody like that get in the limelight? Let's talk about his audition tape. Let's talk about creating chances for yourself. Let's talk about the agent that you have and the opportunities and like all this kind of stuff. There's lessons to be pulled from those kinds of things that you can then, in some creative way and fun way, relate to your audience. One of my favorite ways to go about this, especially if you're more of an informational type of business or a channel, is to go to Amazon. You go to Amazon, you look up books related to your topic. And what's really cool about Amazon is you can look inside the cover of these books. And inside the cover, you're going to find the table of contents. Guess what? This is a already sort of filtered list of things that are important to that particular topic. Now, don't copy, obviously, but you're going to get inspired, right? If there was like a fishing book and, I look up a fishing book and I'm a fishing channel, I'm like, oh, there's like a whole section on tying flies. Cool. What can I do on my YouTube channel that is interesting around that topic? Top 5 easiest flies to tie for beginners. Boom. There's a great video right there, right? And in that video, I will show the first one right away and how it just takes 30 seconds to do, or a minute, or I don't know how to tie flies, so I don't know how long it might take, but I would support the fact that I'm making the case for it's easy with the first minute of that video, or right away, immediately. The worst mistake you can make when creating a video is welcoming people back to your channel, because remember, the people who are finding your video the most are not people who have found your channel yet. You can welcome people into the community later, but just get right into what the video topic is. So speaking of community, going to your community, your YouTube audience is a great place to go. There are some formats of channels, for example, and these are more entertainment off the top of my head, but epic rap battles of history, for example.
Love those.
At the end of the video, they say, "Who's next?" And in the comment section, commenters will say, oh, these two people need to rap battle each other. These two people. And what do you see at the beginning of every epic rap battle of history video? The comments displayed that this is what the community wanted. What an amazing way to crowdsource exactly what it is that you should be creating about. Look up other channels that are related to your stuff. Now, obviously, again, don't copy, but you could maybe add commentary on top of something and show a little clip from somebody else's channel, or at least mention it. And now there's going to be some cross promotion between those two videos that YouTube's going to understand, especially if you link to it in the description. YouTube will understand that these two videos are linked together. They're going to experiment to see, oh, do people who watch this video also like this video? It might work, and you might get a load of traffic coming in as a suggested video from that other creator. I have a lot of videos in the Pokemon space that blow up because another creator created a video that's similar to the one that I have already in my library. So that's another place that you can go and get content. And the other thing is just experiment. Try something. If you're interested in something, create a video about it. If it doesn't work, that's okay. I think we don't need to we don't need to have every video hit the mark, but every video you create will teach you something. And then finally, stories. Like if there are any stories that you can tell that are like, I bet a great format of a video for your listeners would be pulling a client and their story out and sharing not how you help them, but the struggle that they had, the obstacles that they overcome. Maybe that's the title of a video, is specifically a struggle that other people have too. So now they say, oh, I have that struggle too, right? Like how to overcome the fear of public speaking, Casey's story or something like that. Now I'm telling the story. Yes, I'm teaching at the same time. And then at the end, it's like, oh, look at Casey now. He's like on stage and he's getting paid for his gig, and he was afraid at first. Wait, how did he learn all this stuff? Oh, it was Pat or Rick or whoever. I should go check out that course that was spoken about, that was just mentioned, but it's not the focus. Using YouTube to tell story with visuals alongside it is wonderful and helps a lot with retention and engagement.
You know that I like take notes on whatever you say. Like you whenever we talk about a topic of a video, like the headline of the video, you just like rattle off just like the best ones.
Well, I mean, some
of
them are good.
Say that again.
Some of them are not.
Well, let's talk about that, because I think this part is different than how other people teach YouTube. And I think this works. I mean, you have so many examples of this working just in your own, and then all of your students. I mean, you have multiple channels. We're going to, in part 2, we're going to talk about Deep Pocket Monster, your Pokemon channel. Yeah. And how when I look today, you're at 248,000 subscribers
in less than 2 years, which is crazy.
In like what, a year and a half, I think, something like that. Like, that's amazing. And so we're going to talk about that in part 2 and how you've done that. So we have our topics. we have like, we're putting them into a spreadsheet, whatever we're doing, Notion or, whatever it is. We've got our library of ideas, if you will. So you mentioned earlier, we start recording.
No.
Don't worry about the fancy or like, is it literally as like, just get on camera and start
not
recording?
Quite. Not quite. If you have the topic, don't just hit record and riff, because you want to know where you're going, and your audience wants to know where you're going to. You can riff, and it could be fine, especially if it's just like a natural response to something that's happening. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
But the way that I recommend, and this is what I teach, and it's worked really, really well for my channels and my students, is the topic is just like the idea. The video could be something completely different than what you think it might be. So we need to start with the title. That's where you start. What's a clickable, interesting title that a person would click on, knowing where they're coming from? So what I mean by that is, if you're doing a search-based video, you're like going to create a video about using Squadcast, which is the tool we're using right now to record this podcast. It's an amazing tool. I'm an advisor to the company, which is why I just kind of thought about it. Anyway, if I'm going to create a search-based video, well, then I want Squadcast in the title somewhere, right?
Yeah.
But now I'm going to come up with 10, maybe 20 ideas related to Squadcast for titles, and I'm just going to see which ones may or may not be the most clickable or interesting. And I don't know exactly what the video is going to be about yet. For example, if the video was, is Squadcast really the best interviewing software for podcasters? Well, that then informs like, okay, well, it's specifically for podcasters, but then I'm also going to be comparing it to others, right? Which is completely different than how to use Squadcast easy tutorial or full tutorial.
Right.
Now I don't need to worry about the other ones. Now it's, well, let me dive into the features and show the how-to of using Squadcast. Same seed idea, just Squadcast, but two completely different videos. I might actually create both videos, right?
Yeah.
The best example I have was a video I did about, so this is in the Pokemon channel, which I know we'll talk about in part 2, which I hope you all will listen to, but this is just an example that just came to mind, which is a video, the idea for the video, right? Like the topic that was listed in a spreadsheet where we use Notion was like things to do with your extra energy cards. Or no. It was how to store your cards in a binder. That's the one I want to talk about. Because all collectible people who have collectibles like Pokemon want to, they have binders, and it's like there's certain ways to do it to best protect your cards. Like there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. But if that were the title, like how to use a binder to protect your cards, that's like not that interesting. But there's so many things I could teach within that. But if I don't get a title that's curiosity driven that can get people to click on it, then it's not going to work. So we came up with a whole bunch of titles, and the title that we came up with was how to correctly store your cards in a binder, which then informs the person who comes across that, like, wait, there's a wrong way to do it? Am I doing it the right way?
That's where my mind just went to.
Am I doing it the right, like the wrong way? And then the thumbnail, which features like a popular card that people will see and know right away. It's like a Charizard. It says, "You're doing it wrong," on the thumbnail, and it's like, I have to click on that to make sure I'm doing it right, because my cards could be sitting right there and be doing it wrong. That video, which again is just literally a video about storing your cards, has like 800,000 views or something like that, which is crazy. Wow. But the way the video was filmed was, here's how people are doing it wrong, and then here's the right way to do it, right? Because now the video is essentially a checklist, like, oh, yep, I'm doing that right, I'm doing that right, oh, I'm doing that wrong, I'm doing that wrong, versus if I'm just like, hey guys, here are 5 things you should know about when storing your cards. Number 1, do this. Number 2, do this. Number 3. So the title informed the way the whole thing was filmed entirely. And that makes it easier for you to, when you get that title, to go, okay, how do we get a person from when they click on that interesting title, and it's at least going to have a better chance than if you created the title after. It doesn't always work, but it's much better likelihood to happen as far as like getting good clicks on it. Now what happens next? What is a person expecting when they watch this video? How am I going to hook them in the beginning? And how are we going to stick them all the way to the end? Right? So that will then inform, okay, now I'm going to create the outline. And I just usually use Post-it notes or some rough bullet point outline on Notion. Sometimes I'm doing a voiceover, in which case I'm going to script it out because I want the voiceover to be right. And then we just have B-roll, or I act out certain things while I'm talking. But in most cases, especially on the Pat Flynn educational channel, I have just a list of things that I'm talking about. But I really want to nail the hook in the beginning, because you have to figure out, like, well, what's going to get a person to stick all the way to the end? If they get the first tip and the first tip's great and that's enough, well, they might leave if it's like a 5-tip kind of thing. How do we keep them going? So within the first 10 to 20 seconds, you want to have something that teases or mentions what they're going to get at the end of this, or what comes out of all this, right? For example, a video about, I don't know, Facebook advertising or something, right? Like, 5 changes Facebook made to the advertising algorithm or something, right? It's like, you need to know this in the title, right? And I click on it, and it's like, I'm explaining it, and like, hey, I'm going to share with you 5 different things Facebook changed. You need to know all of them, because if you don't know just one of these things, you might be spending way more than you need to. So now I'm like, okay, I'm like, in my head as a viewer, okay, I got to get all of these things, or else this is not going to work, right? In other cases, it's, a story that's being told, and it's like, well, what happened in the end? I need to know what happens, right? Like in a video that we did about Walmart scams, I was revealing a scam, Walmart partnering with a Chinese company and scamming with fake Pokemon cards, right? I could have just shared that, but we needed something to tie in people to stick around all the way to the end. So the whole story was, while sharing this sort of scam situation, was I bought the cards that were fake. I showed that they were fake, and I'm going to try to get a refund. That's the whole story. Am I actually going to get my money back? I could have just revealed that right away, but we held that to the end. And throughout the whole story in this reveal about Walmart, it was me also communicating with Walmart and showing how hard it was to get the refund. Did I get the refund yet? Nope. Oh, I got to keep going. I got to do another call next day. Still haven't gotten the refund yet. So now it's like, when the refund finally came at the end, woo, climax. Like, there it is.
Right.
And people were sticking around to see if I'd get my money back or not. And I specifically mentioned in the beginning, I don't know if I'm going to get my money back or not. Boom. You've got them hooked now. You've given them an open loop that they need to close one way or another, that they're going to stick around to the end for it. We're getting into like psychology now and gap theory and all this stuff, which is really, really important to lightly understand. You don't need to go deep into it, but understanding it even a little bit will help you.
I was just going to say, that sounds like a more advanced storytelling always, but what you're talking about, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, like, it sounds like a more advanced strategy. The idea is get better each time, like you talked about earlier.
I mean, again, to go back to Tim's question, if this were easy, what would it look like? You would have a reason for people to stick around to the end of the video. Boom. Done. Yeah. That's not advanced.
Now, we're going to cover a lot in part 2 here. So I want to wrap up part 1. And so in part 2, I want to talk about editing. Like, do you do it yourself? Do you find an editor? How are you creating? We talked about thumbnails and the importance of title. How are you creating the thumbnails? I want to talk about getting your first 1,000 subscribers on the channel. And I'd love to do it through the lens of how you built the Pokemon channel that you're talking about, because you've had your Pat Flynn channel for a long time, but the growth you've seen in Deep Pocket Monster is 250,000 subs in a year and a half.
It took 9 years to get 100,000 subs on the Pat Flynn channel. So just to give you some perspective.
So I want to cover that. And I also want to talk about shorts. Everyone's always asking about shorts. Should I do them? Should I not do them? Do they help the channel? Do they hurt the channel? So we're going to cover all that in part 2. Based on what we've covered so far, what do you want the biggest takeaway to be for people listening to? They understand now that, okay, YouTube is a huge opportunity. Don't overthink it. We've talked about a bunch of different ways to get content ideas. what is like the big takeaway that you want people to have today?
Yeah, two things. Number one, viewer intent. When a person is finding your video, like what do they really want? And then give that to them. That's number one, right? So put yourself in the shoes of a person who's searching for that key term or discovers that video on their home feed. How are they going to be curious to click on it? And also, who are you creating these videos for, right? So that's really important. And number two, the click and stick strategy. This is exactly the approach you need to understand as far as what analytics are important, as far as click-through rate, watch time. YouTube gives you all of that stuff. One thing that YouTube does very well is data and analytics, better than any content platform I've ever seen. But that's also the problem. It can be very overwhelming. When we teach this in our course, we only show you the analytics that matter. And what that means is click-through rate and like impressions, and then watch time and average view duration. Those are the things that are most important. And so when you're creating your assets, you know, your title, your thumbnail is the click part, and your engagement and your hook, for example, is the stick part. And I love what you said of just getting better each time, which means you have to keep publishing, Rick, in order to do that. But yeah, part two is going to be a lot of fun because there's some detail that we haven't discussed that are going to sort of fill in those holes and help make this even more possible. Because that's the whole thing. You don't have time to be a full-time YouTuber, most likely. Most people don't. Many people who do start on YouTube eventually become full-time YouTubers because they see the opportunity or something takes off. So that's even a possibility. But to insert this into your business in an easy way, to answer questions at the start and just start building a sort of, you know, claiming your space in the world of YouTube with your expertise is going to be really important, I think. And I'm happy to stick around for part two. And I hope you do too when it comes out next.
And that's one thing that we'll talk about also in part two is like, all right, we understand the opportunity. We're going to talk about editing, getting your first, like how you've built Deep Pocket Monster, but also what are the monetization like opportunities that exist? Because there's a lot, right? You mentioned earlier when you've had months where both channels were working really, really well together, if you will, creating like 30 grand a month.
Yeah, that was just on ad revenue. There's
just on ad revenue.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity for sure. We'll get into that.
I love it. So you've mentioned a few times during this part one here, you've got your YouTube course, YouTube from Scratch. Tell us a little bit about that course, because my audience, I get questions about it all the time about YouTube. And obviously, as we've clearly outlined here today, I am not the person to be answering questions on YouTube. So tell us about the program.
Yeah, so it's called YouTube from Scratch. My videographer and partner on the Switch Pod, which is a physical product, we partnered together on this course to create what is, I believe, the simplest to go through YouTube course on the internet. And that was the approach. It was like, it's not everything you need to know about YouTube, right? It's just all you need to know to get to 1,000 subs and start sort of having this become a part of your business. And so the approach is really simple. You watch a video, you do the thing, you keep going. I actually build another channel and you watch it happen and unfold and how I approach it so that you can build yours the same way. It's a gardening channel, actually. But it's helped hundreds of people already, and it's there to simplify. That's really the thing. We don't want to overwhelm or confuse you because all the other courses that are out there will do that. So I hope that this is maybe proven that, you know, I kind of know what I'm talking about, and I want to help others too, because there's a huge opportunity on there. And yeah, YouTube from Scratch is something that, you know, just for you and your audience, we're going to offer something really special too, with a discount and whatnot for a limited time. So I don't know if you have a place you want to drive them to as they're listening to this, but we want to offer everybody who's here an opportunity to get in with some special stuff involved.
Yeah, rickmulready.com/Pat, P-A-T, rickmulready.com/Pat. Go to that link, learn more about the offer for YouTube from Scratch. And I can absolutely attest to what Pat said. And I'm not just saying that because, you know, he's right here in front of me talking. I have bought several YouTube courses, and Pat just came out with, I mean, we're recording this towards the end of August. It's only been out a couple months.
A couple months, yeah.
Yeah. And so, and I've been asking you for like, dude, when are you going to create a YouTube course? He's like, you're like, we're working on it. And so I had bought a few other courses before, and I was like, holy cow, they make it so confusing. And then, you know, just like what your brand is, simplicity, easy to learn. And I've gone through it. I'm like, This is what I was looking for
Good.
all along. So
Thank you.
YouTube from scratch, rickmulready.com/Pat. Thank you, my friend. I almost called you Frother. Thank you, my brother. Frother, I like that. Thank
Father,
you, my
brother?
brother.
Friend,
Yeah,
brother. There we go.
for coming on today. Part 1. Stay tuned for part 2, my friends. Next week, we're going to talk about editing, how to get your first 1,000 subscribers. We're going to talk about how Pat has built Deep Pocket Monster, the other YouTube channel that he runs, to 250,000 subscribers in a year and a half. We're going to talk about analytics, shorts, all the fun stuff. Thanks, brother.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks so much for listening or watching today's episode here with Pat Flynn. Again, that link to go check out his and enroll in his YouTube from scratch course is rickmulready.com/Pat. I've also put together a couple bonuses there for you. So when you enroll through my link, I am a proud affiliate for Pat's program, and I do get a small commission if you choose to enroll in the program. I have, like I mentioned a couple times, this is the 4th YouTube course that I've bought because this is something that I really want to get good at and build a long-term asset for myself and my business. And it is by far the best YouTube course that I've seen on so many different levels, not only just because it's very inexpensive, but also it is step-by-step and super simple. The other ones I've gone into, I'm like, holy cow, this is so overwhelming. I'm out of here. I don't even know where to start. And so definitely encourage you, go check it out. rickmulready.com/Pat is the link to get, my bonuses, and then also enroll in YouTube from scratch. Thank you, my friend, as always, for tuning in today. And coming up in part 2, as I mentioned at the top of the show, we're going to be talking about everything from YouTube Shorts to how to get your first 1,000 subscribers, to editing, the types of things you want to be thinking about from an editing perspective. We talk about what types of things that Pat has done to get to 250,000 subscribers for his Deep Pocket Monster. It's a Pokemon YouTube channel. He's reached that subscriber level in just over a year and a half. He breaks down how he's done that. We talk about analytics. We talk about monetization. That is all coming up next week in part 2, my friend. So until then, be well, and I'll talk to you soon.